Om Shri Sai Ram, invoking Bhagwan's presence amidst all of us today and welcoming everyone on this beautiful Samarpan session this Sunday evening. Let's start this session with prayers to Bhagwan. We'll start with 3 Omkars. Dear brothers and sisters, once again loving Sai Ram to one and all, and once again welcoming everybody for this Samarpan session. It is my great honor and privilege, and rather more than that, I would say it's Swami's grace that I have this opportunity to introduce to you my very beloved professor, Professor Gangadhar Shastri sir. I consider him as an ideal. When I was in Prashant Nilayam doing my studies in Bhagwan's University, Sir was teaching us political science. But let me tell you, dear brothers and sisters, and all the elders on this session, it was never a class, but it was always a Samarpan session that was happening with us. So it was a very, very beautifully, finely knitted balance of the subject and what Bhagwan expects us as his students, and what Bhagwan wants Shastri sir as his professor to teach his students. Those 1 hour sessions, we would never know how would those 1 hour would just pass away. And we were always mesmerized to be in sir's class, listening to his power-packed experience of his of the curriculum, listening to his experiences with Bhagwan, listening to his life's experience of how he came up, how he grew, how he became professor, how Swami guided him in his life, and listening to his passionate advice to all young students as to what political science is, what civil administration is, what does it mean to be a citizen of a country, what does our rights, our duty, so on and so forth. I mean, sir's passion was so much that I know many of my seniors, many of my batchmates, my juniors aspired to get into civil services. And if they aspired to get into civil services, it was because of the inspiration which Sir instilled in all of us during his classes. Now, this was with respect to subject. Next was about Swami. As I said in the beginning, it was a very finely knitted balance between a subject and Bhagwan's experience, what Bhagwan expects from us. So the way Sir would express his experiences, the way he would tell what he understood of Bhagwan, would make us feel that let us try to experience that today evening during darshan. You know, and dear brothers and sisters, you won't believe, it was such a wonderful sight to see Swami and Gangadhar Shastri sir in Sai Kulwant Hall. You know, sir would always have one position, one place where he would always sit, and Swami would always cross that point. And the way Swami would cross and look at Sir, and Sir would be looking at Swami, without physically talking, you know that there is a conversation that has happened that day. And this is not single day. This was every day. This was every day. And I would notice this very passionately. You know, every day Sir would just come before Swami comes in. Swami comes, crosses him. They both look at each other, talk something without physically talking, without making it apparent to everybody. Swami moves to the portico, and then Sir would leave. Now, this is something which I have experienced during my student life. But today, what you are going to hear is what Sir, what that relation was built up to from 1970s when Sir came into Swami's fold. I have heard some of Sir's experiences, really mind-boggling and really thrilling experiences. So without taking any more time, I know I've already given a very long introduction, but it's just that, you know, I have a lot of love for Sir and I really wanted to speak. So without taking any more time, I would now give a very short formal introduction to Sir, and I would leave the platform open to him. And let Sir mesmerize all of us today again. So, Sir joined the Sri Satsai Arts and Science Commerce College in the year 1979 when Swami inaugurated it. And Sir was blessed to join as the first staff member in that college. Later in 1981, when the college was accorded deemed to be university status, Sir was absorbed in the university as a lecturer. He also held in the past the positions of director of Prashantinilayam campus of Sri Satsai Institute of Higher Learning, besides being member of the university's academic council and chairperson of the board of studies. On the education front, Sir did his master's in political science from Andhra University and served as a lecturer of political science at Andhra Loyola College, Vijayawada from 1977 to 79. After joining Prashantinilayam and on the insistence of Bhagwan, Sir pursued MPhil in history and archaeology from Nagarjuna University, Guntur, and later completed PhD in public administration from Osmania University, Hyderabad. Sir has authored several articles on Bhagwan in Telugu dailies, Sanatan Sarthi, Sri Vani, and other magazines. Now, I leave the platform open to Sir. Sir, once again, welcoming you to this Samarpan session. And I request you to now share your experiences with all of us. Sai Ram.
Om Sri Sai Ram. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Am I clear?
Yes, sir, very much.
That looks good. Om Sri Sai Ram. Offering my most prayerful salutations at Bhagavan's lotus feet, and also conveying my heartful Sai Ram to each and every one of you present. I would like to share some of my thoughts on Bhagavan's sojourn on the planet, and also his mission, his grace, and also the impact made by his presence. Exactly not at Puttaparthi or Prashantinilayam or Andhra Pradesh, all over India and all over the world. All over the world, actually, the world zooms to the tunes of Bhagavan Baba today. It's very important for us to know some of the facts relating to this country. Once somebody asked Bhagavan Baba a pertinent question. He said, Bhagavan, why is it that always incarnations take place only in India, not outside anywhere? And Bhagavan's answer was, in case you need gold, you don't dig anywhere you wish to get it. You have to dig at the appropriate place where there is a mine and where you strike gold. If you want the wealth of spirituality, which is the real wealth, not the other wealth. Spirituality is the real wealth. If you want that, you must be fortunate to be born in India and also to have known the greatness of Vedas, Upanishads, Itihasas, and also so many other wonderful scriptures rendered by great souls in different languages. As a student of political science, when I was during my degree course and my MA course, I was reading extensively on one important aspect. The aspect of human civilization and culture. The topic is very dear to me because we are all human beings and our journey has got to be upwards to sanctify our lives. How do we sanctify our lives? Swami said, you have to ask some questions to yourself. It is not that, even according to Bhagavan Baba, that he is going to hold you by your little finger and make you walk on the path of spirituality. Swami clearly declared that he was not there to do it. You have to walk on the road yourself. For that, he gave an example. The example he gave was, you are very hungry and you have to satiate your hunger. You have all the dishes served in your plate. You are sitting in front of the plate, looking at the meal. You don't satiate your hunger. You have to eat it. You have to relish it. First of all, you have to mix it up. You have to eat. Then only the hunger is satiated. In the same way, you have to do it yourself. You have to experience it. I am using the word experience because maybe a lot of people have got a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of knowledge. There are millions of doctorates. There are millions of Nobel laureates. There are millions and millions of university professors, vice chancellors, and so many administrators. Academically highly accomplished people are there. Bhagwan Baba always observed and said, what for is your education when it does not really put you on the path of spirituality and make you work for your redemption? Many people are going to ask the question, what is redemption? What is sanctifying one's own life? Lots of questions will be asked because, you have worldly knowledge and you think you are here just to enjoy your life. And your enjoyment of life is understood as materialistic enjoyment. Because my mind is opened only on the materialistic front and the other front is closed, which is the most significant front. In India, this wisdom is given through Vedas, Upanishads, and Itihasas, and all the other kinds of spiritual literature given to us by realized souls from all states. If you want, you just look at Kashmir. There is so much of wonderful spiritual literature given to India by that state. Go to Bengal, go to Gujarat, go to Maharashtra, go to Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. I tell you, so much of material, spiritual wisdom is given to us by so many people across India. We don't know it. Why we don't know it is we don't open our minds. Our minds are to be opened, and we should look at that kind of wisdom which is given to us by all these saints and scholars. What did they do? They gave us that wisdom which is important for us to sanctify our lives. Sanctify in quotes. What do you mean by sanctifying? If we need to understand sanctification of life, what is sanctification, how to sanctify, then we all will have to ask one question to ourselves. A shocking question. Bhagwan Baba asked us or guided us on this line whenever there was an interview with Swami. In the interview room, he always insisted on we people putting this question to ourselves. He said, why am I here? Why? Where from I am? Where from did I come? Where is my journey? Where am I going? No answers. There are no answers to these questions. It's not easy to get these answers. And Swami told us, think for a while. Millions came. Millions and millions came onto this planet. Still they are coming. And they will be coming. Millions and millions were there. They are there today. They will be there tomorrow. Not only human beings. All kinds of species will be there always. With the knowledge of our scientific advancements and technological advancements, today we, at least as educated people or so-called educated people, we know there are extinctions taking place. Lots of species are getting extinct. Maybe somebody says we are only responsible for that extinction, things like that. Dinosaurs were there. They are not there. And there are many more are not there today. We don't know exactly how many millions of species appeared on this planet and disappeared even before man actually civilized. Who was responsible for that? For all those species which disappeared before humans really began to walk on the path of scientific advancements and technological advancements. Who were responsible for that? No answers. Our education, so-called education, is not going to give answers to all these questions. But we are sure about certain facts. They are going to be realistic as long as there are planets. As Earth is going to be there, you will be sure about this. What is that? That is, death is certain. Death is damn certain. There is no question. Impossible. That's why through Vedas, the wisdom is given in India millions of years ago. In fact, Vedas are called apaurusheyas. Apaurusheyas are what have come to us not through Purushas, not through any human beings. No one knows how Vedas are given to human beings even till date. Who gave Vedas to us? Nobody knows. And you know, Vedas, we may not be respecting our own rich culture of Vedas, rich culture of Puranas and others, but let me tell you, some foreigners, they were attracted so much to Vedas and Upanishads, they mastered actually, and they started to propagate the Vedic culture all over the world, even before we started it. I'll give you one example of a very great scholar from Germany, Max Muller. Swami talked about him. Swami, a number of occasions Swami mentioned. While reminding us that we are not applying our minds to the right wisdom, right knowledge, we are not respecting our own culture, and we are not respecting our own civilization, and we are not bothering about sanctifying our lives because we are running after the worldly benefits, worldly happiness, materialistic happiness and all that. What we are doing is very clearly, I know you will very easily understand this point which I am mentioning to you. We are losing a wonderful opportunity. We are the losers. Let us tell ourselves every minute, I am the loser, I am the loser, I am the loser, I am the loser. Let us remind every minute to ourselves, I am a loser. Why I am a loser? Because I don't respect my culture, which helps me in redeeming my life, in sanctifying my life. No, it's not helping me. Then what is the purpose of living on this planet? Maybe somebody will say, I am living. Am I living on my own volition? Did I choose this? Yes. You may not understand the logic behind it because Shankaracharya mentioned it and Swami quoted on a number of occasions. What is that? Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. You are coming onto this planet again and again and again, entering the womb of a mother. Or maybe you are taking the form of a bird or a beast or anything. Swami one day in the interview room told us, this opportunity which is given to you to be a human being is the ultimate opportunity. Ultimate, fantastic opportunity which cannot be described in words. To be a human being is a fantastic thing. It's a superb thing to be a human being because you penanced for janmas and janmas and janmas and you got this opportunity. Naturally, Swami told us, All human beings, whenever a point is put to them, what do they do, you know? How do you say that? We know how to question, whether we like to understand the answer or not. We go on questioning. Oh, we love everybody. We question God also. We question everybody. We don't mind actually assassinating intellectuals on this planet who contributed their entire lifetime to our welfare. They actually embraced a life of poverty for the wealth of the human beings. Embracing poverty. Mahatma Gandhi embraced poverty all through his life. Swami Vivekananda did it. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa did it. Ramana Maharshi did it. Shirdi Swami did it. Parthi Swami did it. Did you ever see Parthi Swami wearing a watch, wearing a gold chain, wearing ornaments and all that, and living in a posh 100 rooms, AC compartments, beautiful buildings? You must be knowing how actually as a boy, he went through all kinds of trials and tribulations. He cooked food, he carried water, he was cycling, he walked for miles and miles, he wore a knicker, he wore a shirt with no buttons. But he revealed the beauty of it. The beauty of that whole thing is, Swami said, I never felt I was poor in the worldly sense. In the worldly sense, when you looked at Swami, you thought he was poor. No. He was the richest person in the world even at that time. Why? Because spiritually speaking, your richness is measured by a fantastic quality, a superb quality. The superb quality is having more maximum desires. When you cultivate, you will be measured as the richest man on the planet. Swami told us one day in the interview room, I believe Shankaracharya. Swami quoted Shankaracharya, and Shankaracharya asked his disciples, can you tell me who is the richest man in the world? And his Sishyas, they did not answer. And Swami Shankaracharya gave the answer. Swami quoted that answer to us and said, those with no desires are the richest people in the world. No desires. One day, some student asked me when I was walking, I go for a walk every day. And one student asked me, sir, we are watching you for the past 40 years. You are the same jovial person. You are very happy. All the time, you come for a walk, you go. Even after 40 years today, you teach with the kind of passion with which you started 40 years ago. How this happens? Then I told him, suddenly it struck to me like that. I said to him, Babu, whenever I come for a walk, you know, I watch the watchman at the campus, Narsimulu. My students know him. That Narsimulu as watchman, you know, he is working for the past 40 years along with me as near the gate. I found him so bright, so happy, so satisfied, so contented. And always I ask a question myself, when my watchman at the gate is so happy, as a professor, why I am not happy? There is something wrong with me. If I am not happy as much as he is, that means something is wrong with me. My servant maid working at home, getting 2,000 rupees per month, is extremely happy with her husband and children. Me getting 1.5 lakhs, 2 lakhs, I am frustrated. I am not at all happy. What is it? There is something wrong with us. Seriously, something wrong with us. We are frustrated because we don't have the right attitude towards life. You must have a right attitude towards life. What is the right attitude? Swami defined it. Swami said, right attitude is to be contented with what you are. Very simple. Very, very, very simple. Be contented with what you are. You have actually a house to live in. You have wonderful dresses to wear. You have a vehicle. You have food. You have wife. You have children, everything. Still you are worried means no God can save you. You are not contented. As long as you are not contented, you can never travel on the spiritual path. Spiritual path journey's first most important principle is you keep yourself happy first of all. You keep yourself happy. You tell yourself, yeah, I am happy. What is my problem? A pessimist and optimist. Bhagwan Baba was talking about it in Sai Kulwant one day in his discourse, and he said, you know what is the problem with people today? Though they have everything, still they think that there is something missing. They are not happy with what they are having. They are crying for more than what they are having, whether they deserve it or not, whether they need it or not. You don't need many things, as speaking, but you will be aspiring for all those things and invite sorrow. We have to question ourselves. Do I need it? Today, when we look at the corporate culture and the materialistic way of life, I wonder, because husband, wife, and children at home, you have a car. Wife wants another car, son wants another car, daughter wants another car. Everybody wants. You want actually so many gadgets. With understanding whether you need them or not, really speaking, without understanding how many problems those are going to invite, those are going to give you more and more problems actually. You stop using it, you will not be inviting problems. I will give you an example. Today, the world is not comfortable without a mobile, without a cell phone. Please visit our Universe campus or all campuses, Prashant Trilang campus, Anantapur campus, Brindavan campus, Muddanahalli campus. All campuses, go there. Our students don't use a mobile at all. No one. No, it's banned. No one uses. And they are more happy by not using it. Their problems are reduced. Their comforts are increased. Their time, time, which is the most important aspect of spirituality, which is called as, because time is God, is it not? Everybody knows. When you worship Swami, how do you worship? In the names of describing Swami, we say, Kalaya Namaha, Kala Kalaya Namaha, Kala Swarupaya Namaha, Kalatitaya Namaha, time. Running out. Swami told us any number of times. Swami said, every minute running out, you cannot retrieve. It cannot come back to you. How much sadhana you are doing, how much prayers you are offering from morning till evening. You do your work. You have to eke out your earning. You have to earn your food. You work. But at the same time, the second most important aspect of life is only one. That is spirituality. How to sanctify the life. Whether we like it or not, we are going to disappear from this planet. We have no choice on that. And the time is also never known when we are going to go. You cannot say. Swami on a number of occasions said, why spirituality now when I am in my 5th class, 6th class, 10th class or undergraduate, when I am 50 years, when I am 60 years, I will start praying, then I will begin to worship and all that. You try to satisfy your laziness by giving all kinds of answers. You are not understanding that you are lazy to do it. You are lazy. Swami never wanted it. See, laziness is something which is to be conquered totally. Totally. There should be no laziness at all. You must always be ready. Swami, whenever he asked somebody to do some work, what did he say? I want you to do this. And I found the people telling him, I was a witness to this answer when they said, I will try, Swami. And immediately what Swami said, boys know it. No trying. That word doesn't exist in my dictionary, he said. When I said something, you must do it. You do it, that's all. Because, my boys were telling me just now, before I began my talk, they used a word which is so dear to me. That phrase is so dear to me. My boys quoted it to me today. Sir, you have no choice, they said. You don't have choice. As far as spirituality is concerned, you have no choice. Better you understand that first. Whether you like it or not, you have to sanctify your life. Otherwise, be ready to come back. What is wrong in coming back, you might ask? Swami said a number of times, again quoting Shankaracharya, Janma dukkham, jara dukkham, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. How many times you want to come into this world and suffer? Suffer, I say, because maybe you are saying, sir, I have a job, I get a fantastic salary, I have a family, I have a wonderful flat, and I have everything at my command. How do you say it is suffering? I can tell you how it is suffering. Very simply, suffering is your office time is 9 o'clock, you are on the road at 8:30, it is terrible tension to you. You are caught up in traffic jams. You get up at 4 o'clock to prepare the breakfast, it is not ready. Gas cylinder is over, you get really bugged so much about it, you develop tension. And you want to comb your hair and the comb is not found. You get really tensed. Your shoe is not polished, you get tensed. For everything you are going through tension, whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not. You are going through all the tension. Somebody went out, he is late, he did not return home. Oh my God, tremendous, what happened? What must have happened on that? Tension, tension, tension. Life is full of, not only today, ever since human beings began their journey on this planet, they were also going through tension. Because why this tension? Swami said one beautiful thing about this. You know why the tension? The mind of a human being is caught up by a devil. What is the devil? The devil is called uncertainty. Man is caught up by something called uncertainty. You don't know. You don't know what is going to happen. This uncertainty is the one which shakes you 24 hours, which bothers you. It puts you through tremendous tension all the time. I don't know next minute what is going to happen. For example, you are walking on the road and somebody comes and tells you, sir, such and such person, you know him, he is your close friend. You know what happened? 1 hour back, just 2 hours back, he expired. Half an hour back, I said hello to him. How did it happen? How did it happen? It happened, that's all. There's no answer to it. How did it happen? Swami gave us a beautiful mantra on which we need to meditate so that we get onto the spiritual path and get rid of this tension. You can permanently get rid of this tension. You can permanently get rid of all problems by following one mantra given by Swami. Beautiful mantra. You know that mantra, what it is? He simply said, in an interview room, he told us, I don't know whether it registered with all the people in the interview room or not, but it struck me deep and hard. It got registered in my mind. Swami said, Gangadhar, do one thing. He said, yes, Swami, what is it? Love my uncertainty, he said. That's it. That is the mantra. Love his uncertainty. He is so uncertain. It is so uncertain, I tell you, he used to make us like it. How he does, he walks in the veranda. We want to talk to him desperately. He will avoid you. He won't talk to you on that day when you want him to speak to you. He will go on and on and on. Swami, you said you would talk to me and you went on and on and on. You did not talk to me for 1 week. I was going through tremendous tension and all that. And Swami comes back and tells you, you know why I did it? Swami, why did you do it? You know, when your hunger is very, very, very deep and strong, you are very, very, very hungry, when I feed you, you relish the food a lot. So I have to put you through that hunger. Now, what is it that hunger we have to develop? By loving his uncertainty, the hunger you have to develop is love for him. Love him, love him, love him. Try to get closer and closer and closer to him. How is that possible? How to get closer to Swami? The only way is to think of him constantly, 24 hours think of him. You watch his videos, you watch bhajans, you watch his programs, tune to him all the time, tune to him all the time, tune to him. How is it possible, you might ask? Yeah, it's a really tough job to get tuned to him. But when I ponder over this issue, I feel we are fortunate because we live in an ashram where most of the time we are tuned to Bhagavan. Because morning I get up, there is Suprabhatam, Nagar Sankirtan, bhajans from morning till evening, Harati, every day it is going on and on and on and on. Now, how do I get tuned to Swami when I live in Bombay, when I live in Delhi, when I live in Chennai, when I live in Kerala and things like that? Swami gave a mantra to this. Swami told us. How Swami told us, you know, wherever you are living, whatever you are doing, you have to train your mind on the spiritual path by reminding yourself that this opportunity to be a human being is to serve the society, not to serve yourself. The biggest problem is we want to serve ourselves. I want everything for myself, actually. Swami said, you are not yourself, actually speaking. You are a part of the whole scheme. It's a big society. You are a part of it. Without society, you are not there. Now, the question is, you have to ask yourself, what am I giving to the society? Always I want to receive, 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 receive. You get indebted. What am I giving? After receiving all this from society, what am I giving to the society? Broaden this concept. Broaden this given concept. Make your mind broader and broader and think. Swami said, when you broaden your mind and your vision, you develop a vision, you will be able to see things much more clearly. How do you do that? Swami said, early morning the sun rises. When the sun rises, who tells him to rise? The sun sets. Who tells the sun to set? How the moon comes in, how the moon operates, how the rivers are flowing, how the mountains are standing, how the forests are growing, how the stars are hanging in the space, how the oceans are functioning. It comes to such a thing that in our scriptures, the most beautiful description about these things is given as manifestation of divinity itself. It's manifestation of divinity. That is the reason why in India it is clearly said, when you get up in the morning, turn toward the east, do namaskar to sun. Why sun? Without sun, it's impossible for you to exist on the planet. First of all, realize that. Because of the sun, you are existing. Otherwise, you don't exist. Because of the sun, there are clouds. Otherwise, there are no clouds. Because of the sun, there are rains. Otherwise, there are no rains. Because of the sun, there is vegetation. Otherwise, there is no vegetation. Everything, the sun, the moon, the planets, the earth, the oceans, the beings, the animals all over the world, they are all completely interconnected. Swami wanted us to look at that interconnectivity. It's all connected. Don't think that you are outside the entire scheme. You are a part of that scheme. Your existence is very much based on the well-being of the entire creation. So what you do? Very simple. Express your gratitude to the nature 24 hours. Express your gratitude to the nature. Prakriti Mata. We have gone to such an extent that if I say worship Prakriti, you may not understand. So what I say is worship Amavaru, Kali Mata, worship Annapurna, worship Durga, worship Lakshmi, it is Prakriti. Oh, very good. Okay, then start. Swami wanted us to respect nature, to worship nature, to protect nature, and if necessary, sacrifice ourselves for the welfare of the nature. We have to sacrifice ourselves because it is an opportunity. Sacrificing is an opportunity which we have to cultivate. Don't think that sacrificing is something that's beyond your capability. Because there are many people who did it, who are doing it even today. There are so many people sacrificing their lives for the welfare of the human beings, for the universe. They are all doing it. It is all available in the scriptures. Vishwamitra did it, Vasishtha did it, Jamadagni did it, Durvas Mahamuni did it. Sri Ramachandra Prabhu lived all his life to establish dharma. He did not mind sending his wife to forest. They asked, after one insignificant citizen in your empire criticized and you send away your wife, he said, I want that citizen also to be happy. Why? The dharma of a Raja is to keep his people satisfied. It is his dharma. You know, this dharma concept and Raja and empire and all that, it was built on the principle of trust. It is based on the principle of trust. Okay. Trust does not mean exactly that. Trust means believing somebody. That is not alone called as a trust. To bring you closer to the fact, let me talk about Sri Satya Sai Central Trust, established by Bhagavan Baba himself. He started this trust. What is a trust? Swami said, trust means I have so much of wealth. I'm a trustee. I'm not the owner. I'm not the owner of it. I'm the keeper of it. Conscience keeper. Conscience keeper. So what I have to do? Swami was narrating one beautiful story to us one day. He said, Bangaru, as I go on giving darshan every day, whether in Vrindavan, whether in Kodaikanal, Ooty, Bombay, wherever I give, there are many people who hand over letters to me. Lots and lots of people hand over letters to me. And there are many other people who are motivated. I have started a trust, so directly they donate money to the trust so that that money is utilized for charitable purposes and to serve the society. Because I have taken an oath to serve the society. When did you take that oath, Swami, you might ask. As I told you, we love to ask questions always. Swami, when did you take that oath? Did you go to Shanti Vedika? Called all people, and in the presence of all the people you said, I am taking an oath to serve the society. Come on, I'll do so, donate. Did you say that? Very tough to understand because, you know, we need a broad mind to understand these things. There is no way looking in a narrow fashion, having narrow minds, I want to understand broader concepts. That will be a thorough failure. Broaden your minds. And Swami said one thing. The day when I sent a message to Ishwaramba, sitting in Karanam Subbamma's house, wearing a saffron gown as a kid. He was a kid. He was wearing a saffron gown and sent a message to Ishwaramba and said, call my mother. Inti Peddamma. I would Peddamma. He never called her mother actually. She came, saw Swami in a saffron robe and got a shock of her life. What is this, Swami? And then immediately he declared, I don't belong to you. I belong to the world. And one day in the year 1979, he was putting through us through orientation program, all the teachers. We all are from the outside world. And we never knew what was spirituality, first of all. We were all aspirants to become civil servants, enjoy a wonderful life, materialistic life, and nothing like sacrifice, suffering, service. All these are alien concepts to us. So what happened when Swami called us, all the teachers in the foyer in the university, every Sunday he was coming and guiding us actually. He was sitting on a sofa, we were sitting at his lotus feet, and he was educating us on becoming spiritual. He was educating us. Every Sunday he was actually brainwashing us. One day, as he was giving a talk to us as teachers, what are our responsibilities, how to teach? He said, what is teaching? How to teach? How to treat children? Every aspect. He was guiding us on those lines, and he suddenly, what he did, he pulled his robe forward. He caught hold of his robe, pulled it forward and said, what is this? He asked. Then we said, Swami, it's your maxi. It's your vastram. He said, yeah, it's okay. It's my maxi. What is the color of this? It is saffron color, Swami. What does saffron color symbolize? What does this indicate? He said. Some of them said something, and then Swami said, it symbolizes sacrifice. Supreme sacrifice. A person who is ready to sacrifice himself supremely is alone allowed to wear this cloth. That is the tradition of Vedas. And Swami said there are many people who wear this in modern times and cheat the society. According to me, I am the only person having the right to wear this presently on the planet. Why, Bangaru? He clearly said, I don't do anything for myself. I do everything for the society. And then he talked about the trust. Trust. So many people donate so many things, give so many things to me, so much of money, everything goes into the trust account. With what idea they do it? The concept is, if we give to Swami, it will be used for the service of the humankind. The mankind will be served by utilizing even every single paisa will be utilized for that. He talked about it. One day, suddenly, after many years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years or so, in the veranda after interviews, he was talking to us. We teachers were sitting in the veranda. Swami came out. He was in a pensive mood. He was lost in deep thought. Hardly 10, 15 teachers who used to sit there and receive that Brahmajnana from him. That day he came out and he said, I want to ask you one question. Be honest and give me the right answer, he said. Whenever he said that, we knew Brahmajnana was going to be poured on us. So he said, okay, Swami. Swami said, are you happy with all the salaries I am giving you right now? Or do you think that in outside other universities, people get maybe fat salaries and you are getting less? I'm giving you less money and all that. Do you think like that? He asked. That was the most unexpected question in our lives. We never expected such a question from Swami, and we did not answer it. We kept silent. He knows the best. And then suddenly Swami said, I know that many people in their heart of hearts, they think that maybe I am paying them less. But let me tell you, Bangaru, he said, and then Sai economics comes into operation. And he explains to us, Bangaru, in Puttaparthi, whatever salary I am giving you, thousands and thousands, not less actually. In any way, it is not less. It's a fantastic salary we receive. And Swami said, what I am giving you is a fantastic salary, many times more than what you require. I will explain to you, he said. Yes, Swami. You live in a single room, and your maintenance charges are zero almost, because they were charged 3 rupees per day. 90 rupees you are paying rent, electricity free, water free, everything free. And I don't allow you to go to cinemas. You never go to a cinema at all. I will never allow you. First of all, if you cross the compound wall, you will not be allowed to come inside after 9 o'clock. First of all, you are locked out. Okay? You don't go out, cinemas. No parties, I don't allow. No parties, no functions and all that will never be allowed. Everything will be on a low key. In the canteen only. At the most, you can give food in the canteen. And in the canteen, how it is? Full meal you will get for 5 rupees. Impossible to get such meal anywhere. And you don't go outside. I arrange a dhobi for you. I arrange free medical aid for you. I actually perform, or I bless you on every birthday, on every marriage day, on your children's birthday. Naming function will be done by me. Your children's marriages will be performed by me. I will do everything at my own cost. practically what money I am giving is just getting deposited in the bank and you don't draw even a single paisa and use it. Do you want more? No, Swami. This was a fantastic answer, actually. The way he explained, you don't require any money at all. You are getting such a wonderful service because sit in the veranda all the time. From morning till the minute we get up, our hearts beat in the veranda first of all. Rush there, sit there. Why? The divine incarnations darshan you are going to enjoy, which you will never get for births and births and births. You cannot get it. Even today, right now, there are millions of people all over the world aspiring to come to Prashant Nilayam and have Samadhi darshan. They are not able to come for the past 13 months. They are aspiring. They are really hungering for it. When millions and millions and millions are hungering to have darshan, we are having it every day, morning, evening, all the time. I am in the veranda enjoying the darshan. And he will not allow you to. And sitting there, what will happen to you? Spiritually, you progress a lot. Spiritually, you are so satisfied. You don't want anything except Swami. Thereby, Bhagavan Baba was working on something by which he wants us to sanctify our lives by hungering for him all the time. So, in fact, sometimes I use it to wonder, Swami is working overtime. He is working overtime because he comes into the veranda again and again and again so that we develop more and more hunger for him. And we don't leave the veranda at all. You will be surprised to know, I came to know about this fact recently. There are a number of people in Prashant Nilayam who live in the sheds somewhere at the back, who came to Swami 60 years or so back. They are here for the past 60 years and they never crossed the compound wall and went and saw the road, main road for the past 60 years. They did not see it. Impossible, I tell you. We cannot stay like that. You can't stay in your own house, first of all. You have to go onto the road and see all nonsense on the road we have to watch every day because we are addicted to it. We are all addicted to all wrong things in the world, unfortunately. You don't want to sit in the puja room for some time and express your gratitude to God for having given you so many things. Don't you think that it is your duty to get up every day and express your gratitude to Bhagavan that he allows you to see the next day sunrise? He allows you to have wonderful chapatis during lunchtime. Who is giving you all this food? Do you think that if you have money, you will get all these things? No, impossible. You know why? Swami said one day a beautiful thing. When you call somebody a Daridra is an impoverished fellow. Swami said, you know what kind of Daridra it is? He said. We think, yes, Swami, Daridra means there is somebody who doesn't have any money. He doesn't have food to eat. He doesn't have clothes to wear. He doesn't have a house and all that. Swami said, no, Bangar, it's not exactly that. Maybe it is, but there is something more to it. What is it, Swami? Swami said so beautifully. This fellow, he doesn't have anything to eat. He doesn't have a house to live in. He doesn't have a car. He doesn't have anything. He doesn't have chappals to wear. And he is living in a hut. He's suffering and suffering. He is really a Daridra. But what about another man who is having all these things? He is having a big, huge dining table, all food served on the dining table in silver plates. He is wearing wonderful clothes, living in a palace-like building, suffering from BP, sugar, all kinds of diseases, and cannot eat any of those things. He is also a Daridra. He is also, don't think that he is very fortunate because he is also not able to, though everything is available, he cannot eat. A fellow who is having everything and a Daridra, a fellow who is not having anything and a Daridra, your understanding is not complete. That is the reason you think wrongly. So Swami was trying to explain that and said, trust. This trust, what do? We offer services to all kinds of people. And what I do is, he said, I will give you plenty. I will give you everything. I will make your life satisfied. But one thing is there. Bangaru, let me tell you one thing. Even if I want to give you more and more money, there is a problem, he said. What is the problem, Swami? The problem is all the devotees who give this money to me, put it in the trust and want me to utilize, they dictate how I need to spend that money also to me. There is an understanding between my devotees and myself that I don't waste even a single paisa of that money for wrong purposes. I don't have any right, he said. My God, I was shocked. Swami, you don't have a right to spend. Yes, it is not my money, Bangaru. I am very conscious of that fact every minute. I am not supposed to waste that money. It is devotees' money. Given with great devotion to me, with great confidence, with great faith in me, they give that. How do you want me to shatter their faith by spending it in whichever way I like it? No. Charitable purposes. The water project, imagine how much money Swami spent and ran the water project, which the government of India and previous kings for 500 years, never anybody bothered to give water to Rayalaseema people. Swami gave 1 year, within 1 year, spending all his money, and also declared at that time in the Sai Kulwant Hall, in the presence of the former Prime Minister of India, P.V. Narasimha Rao Garu, Swami declared to all the devotees and to the Prime Minister, saying, Prime Minister, for 500 years, son, there is no water, not a glass of water to all the people in Rayalaseema. You never did anything. Please do this project. If you want, I am ready to give any amount of money for this project. I will mortgage all my properties. If necessary, I will sell away Prashant Nilayam, stand on the road and complete this project. What a kind of declaration, or what a kind of commitment. Are we ready to give anything to anybody? When he was ready to give away himself completely, he gave away himself totally, actually speaking. Today, if we are having so many hospitals, those were all doled out to the human beings by him. University buildings are given by him. And not ordinary buildings, fantastic buildings, well equipped. You know, you will be shocked to know when a chair to be placed in the classroom is to be bought. Swami wanted the chair to be brought and put in the interview room for him to take a look at it. He sits on the chair, he tests it, whether the boy will be comfortable sitting on that chair, and the plank is used for writing, whether it is comfortable or not. If it is not comfortable, he would reject and order some other chair. When our children are in the hostel, 24 hours, Swami was sending messages. I want to know whether my children are healthy. Is there any problem? Anybody having an issue? I have to attend to that issue. Considering every child as his own child. Considering every devotee as his own child. Considering every person as a member of his own family. It was love and love and love poured out all the time. Everywhere, everybody. He never showed any signs of tiresomeness, any signs of discomfort, nothing. Always fresh, always fresh, always fresh. And he said, divinity is always like that. I love you all, Bangaru. And what I want is, I want you also to love me like that. So what we need to do is probably 24 hours think of him, his love, his service, his bhajans, his lectures, his discourses. Keep on listening. And Swami gave us a mantra one day. He said, even outside people, you know, when they're traveling, you are driving to your office. You play bhajans in your car. Go on listening to bhajans in your car. When you are going by a city bus, Swami said, when you are going by a city bus, hold into a rod because there is no seat for you. Close your eyes, go on saying Sairam, 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 Sairam. And what he said, you know, not Sairam in an ordinary tone. He said, shout in your mind. Shout, keep on shouting. Sairam, 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 Sairam. All that time, shout inside your mind. As you do it, what happens, you know, you get addicted to it. The beauty of the mind, you know, the mind will follow you exactly as you guide it. If you train your mind to say and ask it to take you to theaters, it will get trained to that. It will say, come on, take me to theater. If you train your mind to take you onto the road, it will say, come on, it's time now, let me go onto the road. Whatever you say, the mind will get addicted to it. If you tell your mind, this is the time for me to go to the temple, it will say exactly at that time every day, hey, time for you to go to temple. Come on, go. Come on, go. It is bhajan time, go. It is what Swami was doing, whether we liked it or not in the beginning, Swami was making us, he was dragging us to bhajan hall every day in Puttaparthi. He was dragging us literally. Maybe many students did not like in the beginning, but after some time, they get addicted to so much, their heart beats in the veranda all the time. You call your parents also. I will talk to your parents. So your mind, you have to train it in such a way that it keeps on chanting the name of Swami, thinks of Swami, thinks of the glory of Swami, Swami service activities. Participate in service activities every Sunday. Your mind will tell you it is 9 o'clock service activity time. Come on, let me rush. Go. Service, you must always be ready. Because that is one way you can sanctify your life. Serving others. So many people all over the countries, they are doing it, in United States of America, in Canada, in France, in Germany, in Russia, so many countries. What they're doing every Sunday, all these people who are working, Swami's devotees, they cook food. They go to places actually where there are people impoverished. They don't have food, anything to eat. They go there. They feed them, in fact. They buy medicines, give to all those people in sick hospitals. Now, who taught us? Who taught us this? It is God who taught us. How he taught us? He did it. Swami said one thing to us, I don't teach what I don't do, he said. One day there was a cultural program here for his birthday celebrations time. So many children came. They were all allowed to live in a shed, a temporarily made shed near the round buildings, behind the old buildings. There was a tremendous rain. Suddenly it began to rain around 10 o'clock. And we were all a bit disturbed. What was happening all around here? What's going to happen to all those devotees and all of them who came? I came to know the next morning that Swami rushed by his car to that place. He called all the Sevadal people and he said, let all these people be immediately shifted to Mandir. His own mandir. He said, let them sleep in the veranda, arrange beds for them, arrange everything for them. He was standing there and getting everything done himself. And he said, and he declared, why I am here? Swami, you are God, you are here. No, yeah, that's all, keep aside. I am here to serve you, he said. I am here to serve you, serve you, serve you. God tells that he is here to serve you. And Swami tells, in Krishna avatar, I served you. In Rama avatar, I served you. Everywhere I was serving you. He gave examples. From Mahabharata, he was quoting an example and saying, how I was serving Arjuna as a charioteer. He will be actually scrubbing my cheeks or temples with his shoes, asking me in which direction the chariot was to be taken. And I take that chariot in that direction. After the war of the day, he washes the chariot himself. He washes the horses himself. He feeds the horses himself. Lord Krishna was doing everything. One day when they were shocked, when they did not know what to do, looking at the ferocious war of Bhishma, they said, how are we going to defeat him? He said, let's go and find out. And Swami narrated this beautiful story when he asked Draupadi to go with him to the tent where Bhishmacharya was making his strategy for the next day war. And what did he tell? As they approached the tent, he said, Draupadi, close your face. Don't show your face. Go and fall at the feet of Bhishmacharya without him noticing you. He should not notice. And he would ask, hey, who are you? What do you want? Just tell him to bless you. Dirgha Sumangali Bhava. He cannot kill your husbands. Dirgha Sumangali Bhava. Once he blesses you, he is bound. And Draupadi fell at the feet. Krishna Swami. Krishna was walking with Draupadi and her sandals were making creaking sound. He said, somebody will watch if you walk with these sandals. Give me the sandals. And what did he do? He wrapped the sandals of Draupadi in his Angavastra. He was having those sandals in his armpit. He carried the sandals of Draupadi. Draupadi fell at the feet of Bhishmacharya. And Bhishma said, hey, who are you? What do you want? She said, Dirgha Sumangali Bhava. He blessed Dirgha Sumangali Bhava. Then she showed her face. Oh my God, you are Draupadi. Yes. Oh, then Lord Krishna must be there somewhere. He knew Bhishmacharya. He is the greatest soul ever lived on this planet. Bhishmacharya, what a kind of personality. And we need to know, we need to read. Swami was insisting that all his devotees must read Ramayana, Bharata. This Shivaratri day, the discourse given by Swami played in Mandir. In that discourse also, actually the clipping, it is shown, I love if my devotees read Ramayana, Bharata, Bhagavata and all that. We must, every day we must read. Then only we'll be able to refine ourselves, because the pitiable aspect of human life is every morning when we get up, we forget the previous day and the knowledge. We have to remind ourselves again and again and again and again and again. Otherwise, Abhyasa and Vairagya, both these are very, very important for us. Vairagya is getting detached. We have to get detached. So many things we don't require, but we go on accumulating. Not necessary. Vairagya will come. Abhyasa, practice. If you don't practice, you don't become spiritual. So he carried and he said, where is Lord Krishna? Lord Krishna was hiding somewhere. He came inside. He said, oh, Krishna, I know, Swami, you must have played this trick. He said, what to do? I have to help the Pandavas. Why? They are so much devoted to me. He found himself in a helpless position except to help Pandavas because of their devotion. Think of Mahabharata, you'll be surprised. The power on the side of Duryodhana was so much, it was impossible for anybody to win over them. But everybody will tell you that it is because of Krishna they won. Only one person, and that's all. And Krishna was always with them because of his devotion. Sri Ramachandra blessed everybody because of their devotion. Guha was blessed. Shabari was blessed. A squirrel was blessed. Everybody was blessed. And there Swami was narrating that story to us, and he said, when the war was fought between Rama and Ravana, because of the sins committed by Ravana and his clan, the entire clan was destroyed. Entire clan. Everybody got destroyed. In a ruthless manner, they were all eliminated. In the same way, in Mahabharata, when you look at the story, you will be surprised to know Duryodhana and the entire clan was simply eliminated because of adharma, because they don't have devotion toward the Lord. And what happened ultimately? Dhritarashtra, having 100 sons, there was nobody to give tarpana to him. Not a single fellow was left to give tarpana there. These are all examples. Swami said, your lives also will be like that if you don't follow dharma in your life. If you don't become spiritual, you will have to come again and again and again, suffer and suffer and suffer. And the most beautiful point made by Swami is, when you get onto the road of spirituality and when you get addicted to spirituality, when you get addicted to spirituality, Swami said, you know what happens? You are in a state of bliss all the time. You are contented, you are happy with what you are, nothing bothers you in this world. No problem can bother you once you become spiritual. That's what Swami wanted you to become. One day Swami was giving darshan. He completed on the lady side. He came onto the gent side. My students know where I used to sit actually. There was a particular place where my seat was put. I used to sit there. Next to me, there was a foreigner in a wheelchair. That foreigner was holding a letter. Swami approached and this foreigner extended his hand and he was about to give the letter. Swami was 3-4 feet away from him. He took one step forward. Swami wanted to take the letter from the hands of the foreigner by extending his hand, opening his 2 fingers. The 2 fingers are opened, clip the letter and take it. That's how actually Swami used to collect letters. So he extended his hand. The foreigner withdrew his hand a little back. Said, why, my God, why this man is withdrawing his hand when Swami is ready to take? He didn't take it. Then what happened, Swami walked one more step forward and he was about to take it. The foreigner withdrew again his hand back. We were all surprised. What is this man playing with Swami like this? And then Swami walked one more step forward and tried to take the letter. This man withdrew his hand back again. And now Swami went so close to him that he could actually hold Swami's hand with his own hand. He went so close. Swami was so close to him. So what he did, he gave the letter. In the process, he caught hold of Swami's hand. And he pulled Swami close to him. He went on kissing Swami's wrist, Swami's fingers. He opened Swami's hand. He kissed the palm. He went on running Swami's hand all over his cheeks, all over his head, all over his heart, all over his shoulders, everywhere, and began to cry. He was crying, profusely crying, having Swami's hand in his hand, running Swami's hand all over his body. He was crying and crying. He began to sob. Swami slowly withdrew his hand from his hand, walked to us. I was sitting behind me, other teachers were all sitting. He looked at us and he made a wonderful observation. Again, I was deeply hurt by that observation. Swami said in Telugu, మీకు ఆ పిచ్చి ఎప్పుడు పడుతుందా అని చూస్తున్నాను. మీకు ఆ పిచ్చి ఎప్పుడు పడుతుందా అని చూస్తున్నాను. I am waiting to see when you are going to be mad like him. I want this madness which that fellow is going through right now. You are here for years and years and years. It is necessary that you become so mad of God. The madness for God. Are we becoming mad of God day by day, day by day, day by day? Madness, is it increasing? My desire to serve the society, is it increasing or not? What is the use of learning shastras and books and chanting so many things and all that, but you don't do anything? There is no use. Swami said once to us, you people say, in a public discourse in the Sai-Kulon-Thal, he said, you people tell me that you are here for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. What is the use? The coconut plant is also 30 years here, he said. In the compound, the coconut plant which is growing, it is also growing for the past 30 years. There is no difference between you and them. And final, I don't know how much time I have. Siddharth.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, sir. It's 7:45, just a time check.
How much time more I have? No more time.
About 5 to 10.
Okay, I will give you the final story about one wonderful experience and I'll close it there. One day, a group of foreigners were sitting and it was a time between darshan and bhajan. Many people left for breakfast. I was sitting in the veranda. Swami came to me and he asked me, look at that side. So I saw a group of foreigners sitting there. And do you know who they are? I said, Swami, I don't know, because we never interact with anybody in ashram. Swami called him and said, hey boy, come here, he said. So one foreigner, he walked on his knees into the veranda. He didn't walk on his legs. He came by knees. And Swami asked him, where from you are? He said, Swami, we are from Italy. And then Swami asked, how do you come from Bangalore to Puttaparthi? I was shocked, I tell you. What the man said was, Swami, we walk on our knees from Bangalore to Puttaparthi. You know, your Maharashtra devotees, from when they come here for Panduranga festival, from Dharmavaram they walk. Dharmavaram they get down, and from Dharmavaram they take a walk to Prashantanilayam. There are so many people. So many people in Chittur district, they walk miles and miles and miles to have darshan of Venkateshwara Swami. So many people walk. Tremendous devotion. And then Swami said, oh yeah, I know that you walk all the way from here to here. You go and sit there, he said. Then Swami narrated the story to me of those devotees. You know, they come from Italy. Many of them sell newspapers and save money. Sell newspapers and save money to buy tickets to come to Parthi and have Swami's darshan. They come by flight all the way, spend a lot of money. In Puttaparthi, we give them accommodation in sheds where they are bitten by mosquitoes. There was only South Indian canteen in those days. They need to eat sambar rice, which they may relish or they may not relish. They don't go out at all. They eat only in South Indian canteen. Their devotion to Swami is so much. They eat here, their stomachs get upset. They don't mind. They, whatever tablet doctors give, they eat, but they will be here spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees. They come They spend 20 days, 30 days, they sit here, aspire for darshan, aspire for bhajans, enjoy everything, and happily contented. I talk to them, they go back. I said, fantastic. They are coming, they are spending lakhs of rupees coming and having a darshan. It's good that they have all that interest, they are coming. And then Swami asked me immediately a question. Gangadhar, they do all that, and what you people do here, he asked. I said, what do? We are also coming every day for darshan and all. No, it's not like that, he said. Then he explained the whole concept in clear terms to me. Look at those people spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees and coming here, and they rush for darshan, they rush for bhajan. Their desire to sit in this hall is so intense and all that. Here I am spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees, constructing wonderful buildings, giving you all facilities, giving you free food, giving you free education, giving you salaries, blessing you everything, and doing all this. But that intensity of desire, is it there within you? They spend money and enjoy. I spend money and give, and still you don't value it. That means the message, or probably what I'm trying to convey or share with all of you is, I think there is something wrong in our thinking. We have to change our thinking. We have to change the entire style of our thinking. The style of thinking is very simple. When you do something to somebody, don't think that you did it to somebody. No. He gave you an opportunity to do it. This is the way you have to look at it. When I teach my children, the children are giving me an opportunity to teach them. I'm teaching the best manner possible. Otherwise, I'm losing an opportunity. They must get satisfied. Whenever you are doing, when a guest comes to your house, you think my guest came, I gave him coffee, I gave him tea, everything and all that you think. But ancient wisdom of Indians, it is clearly mentioned there that whenever a guest comes, don't think that you respected him by offering him coffee, tea, water to wash his feet and make him comfortable. No. You did not honor him. You honored yourself. You honored yourself. How? The guest, he goes out to so many places. Wherever he goes, he tells, when you go to that village, please visit that house. That wife and husband, both of them are such nice people. They will call you, they will take care of you, they will give you food, they will see that you are comfortable, and they shower your love on you. Whenever we are doing something, Swami said, you are bringing out your culture. Never forget this. Whatever you are doing, wherever you are doing, in your office, in your friends' houses, in your guest houses, when you are walking on the road, whatever you are doing, wherever you are doing, be conscious that you are bringing out your culture. If I park my vehicle wrongly on the road, I am bringing out my dirty culture in me. I am not conscious that I am parking my vehicle wrong. When I am eating without sharing it with somebody, I am bringing out my bad culture. Better let us be doing one thing. Swami told us this. Swami told us to develop concern for others all the time. That is culture. Concern for others is culture. When I don't have concern for others, my wife is busy, she wants to go for duty, I say, no, nothing doing. Give me a cup of coffee and then go. I bring out my dirty culture. That's all. Very simple it is. You have no business to put anybody through inconvenience. Better your wife, your children, your father, your mother, your grandmother, whoever it is, whatever you are doing, question yourself whether you are bringing out your finest culture or not. Whenever Swami wanted to do something, whenever wanted to give service to us, he called us into the interview room and he told us, Bangaru, I want you to vacate your rooms. I want you to go to shed and stay there for 20 days, 30 days for all this festival, because owners of the rooms are coming. So I request you to kindly vacate your rooms and go to the shed. It always brought tears into my eyes. What, Swami, you request us, you are the Lord, you can command us, Swami. And Swami said, no, Bangaru, I know I am causing inconvenience to you, so I request you to, I apologize to you. These words ought to be chiseled, I tell you, on your heart. God himself was there to apologize to you, to say, I request you to do this. After all, we are insignificant human beings. Krishna was there to apologize. Rama was there to apologize. Imagine, great, great souls. What are we after all? So, the lessons of spirituality are nothing but to refine our culture, to blossom as the best human being. You are to be remembered and live a wonderful life. Ultimately, Swami said one sentence, I'll bring this talk to a close. Swami said, living while living on this planet is no living. Living while living on this planet is no living. Living after your death as a human being, continue to live on the planet is real living. The choice is yours. Jai Sai Ram. Thank you very, very much to all of you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share some of my thoughts with all of you. And especially Siddharth and Lakshmi and all these boys, they are so dear to close to me. And all others also for your patient listening. Thank you very, very much. And if you want to ask me some one or two questions, it's all open if you have time.
Thank you very much, sir. As much as we would want this session to go on, but we have a time limit to adhere to. But thank you so much for this lovely power-packed session. We do have a couple of questions. So one of our devotees has asked, any specific quality that Swami would expect from a college professor, or that Swami has asked a college professor to follow?
Swami told us one thing, very, very interesting. Whatever you want your students not to do, don't do it yourself. Very simple. You don't want your students to do something, first of all, you don't do it. Whatever it is, speaking lies, either walking on the roads, roaming on the roads, going to theaters, having bad company, eating unnecessary, unwanted things, looking at unwanted things, all that. If you don't want your students to do, first of all, you don't do it. Keep your conscience very clear and clean. Because Swami said, you don't have more right to somebody to do something you don't yourself do. Swami, he told his professor not eat nut. He said, eat that is made chief is eating nut in the days. Somebody was Swami told, see, also a bad habit. I'm addicted to this. Yesterday I asked the professor not to snuff. The habit to do, I think I have to myself. I am dropping from this moment on. Said I never better. Must be no to Ramakrishna with her and said, ask my child not to eat sweets. Please tell her. So I said after Ramakrishna called and told the child, don't eat sweets. It's bad, it spoil your teeth, it is like that. He and last week, is it not? No problem. And Ramakrishna was so beautiful. This story was written by Swami. Myself eating a lot of sweets. How could I advise this girl not to eat? So I practiced eating sweets for a week. Now I gained a moral to do that. So a teacher is a wonderful position actually. Because you are a society. As a society, your shoulders are heavy, but cautious. You are being watched. Swami, when you are walking on the road from Mandir to college, I don't want you to lift your head and watch anything on the road. People will see you. If you are, they get it. See Swami's teachers, they don't lift their head. Students, our students also. They are so disciplined. White and white pant and shirt. Everything. Clear haircut. How to have haircut? Ask you. But do you want me to give 10 rupees? He'll bring 10 rupees and give you and say, go and have a haircut. Discipline, I tell you, is very, very important. Teachers, we must be very careful.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir.
Anything
Sir,
else?
Yeah. Sir, another question. How should we remain in constant communion with Swami? What practices we should follow?
I already mentioned about it. The most important thing is Swami definitely worship. Okay. Definitely his name. He said,
Sir, I think there is sorry, sir. Sorry to interrupt. I think there is some internet issue. I suggest maybe you can switch off your video. Maybe it'll give good bandwidth, so that audio can become clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was clear about this. That stuff you must eat. Very, very, very necessary. Faith is very important. Faith can move mountains, they say. Without having faith, it is not possible for you to do anything. And when you talk about faith, Swami said, self-confidence is very, very, very important. You must have faith in yourself, first of all. When you don't have faith in yourself, you cannot accomplish anything. You must yourself can do it. Secondly, as I already mentioned while sharing my thoughts with all of you, I said, Abhyasa is the most important thing. Abhyasa. What is Abhyasa? Abhyasa is controlling your mind, putting the mind on a perfect track. Mind cannot be controlled so very easily. I talked about this in many of my talks earlier. But Swami said one sutra. This statement made by Swami, I vote for you. He said, master the mind, be a mastermind. Master the mind, be a mastermind. Mind always, Swami said, it is a monkey mind. It will not allow you to stick to one idea, one thought. So many thoughts. As Swami himself mentioned, mind is like an ocean. There is like an ocean, so many thoughts, so much millions and millions of thoughts. As you are listening to my talk now, you must be thinking of what dinner to have. Maybe you are thinking of having chapati or parota. After dinner, what to do, to whom to give a call, what to talk. And this thought arises in your mind, your own knowledge. Mind is such a thing. That is the reason why you are asked to meditate. Calm down your mind, calming your mind. Swami taught one beautiful mantra about this. If you want to calm down your mind, the sutra is silence. It's very, very important. Don't talk. Don't talk. Talking is extraordinarily bad because it disturbs your mind. You lose a lot of energy, you lose your memory power, lots and lots of things you lose according to Swami. If you go on talking and talking, Swami put a ban on talking actually. In our hostels, our children are not allowed to talk. In fact, you will be surprised whenever you come to Puttaparthi, you come to our campus when during the normal days when classes are going on, you will be shocked to know when classes are going on, you won't listen to any voice in the veranda. You think there are no students, no classes are going on. It will be such a silent, thrilling experience. But all classes are engaged. There will be no shouting, no screaming, no jumping and all. Nothing will be there. You will not find our students in the corridors at all. No cafeterias, nothing. Our boys silently come, sit in the class, learn everything. They go back to hostel. In hostel, there is silence practice. When you come to mandir, anyhow, you have to keep your mouth shut. You cannot speak. Because you never know when Swami comes out. Once he ceases to be sent out, you will be packed. Anybody, whoever it is. Silent sitting will help you in silencing your thoughts. Practice it. You will realize it, I'm telling you. Practice for some time. That is why all saints, all sages, all rishis, Vedas, Upanishads, everywhere it is clearly said, practice silence. Practice silence. And better you realize silence does not mean not simply speaking out. Don't think that silence means keep your mouth shut and you are not talking, you are silent. No. It has got two aspects: external speaking, internal speaking. Talking is going on within you also. Most important thing is to control within talking. Not only talking outside, within talking is to be controlled. Within talking is to be controlled means have control over your mind. That is possible when you have Swami's picture in your mind. Have Swami's picture in your mind. Look at that picture constantly. If you want to talk, talk to him. Silently speak to him in your mind. Swami, this is like this is like this. Swami, 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 Swami. You go on talking to him all the time. After a time, whether you like it or not, your mind will continue to talk with him. It will become a part of your game, I am telling you. You just try this. After some time, spirituality is practiced like that. Swami told us while taking bath, Swami said, when you are pouring water on you, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah. Pour water on you and say Om Namah Shivaya. You are doing Abhishekam to Shiva. Because you are Shiva. You are Shiva. Ganeshaya Namaha. Ganesha Abhishekam is over. Mata Abhishekam is over. When you are eating food, offer it to Swami. It is prasadam. In India, the beauty is every act is spiritualized. Every act of yours is spiritualized. Unfortunately, we have forgotten our culture. Swami came back again to remind us, to put us on the track, and to help us in sanctifying our lives. We are the most fortunate generation of people in the entire world as we lived with one incarnation. We never know when again such an opportunity is to be given to the humankind. This is what it is. So have that, practice silencing your mind. Maunam. Ramana Maharshi maintained silence. Mauna Rishi. Mahatma Gandhi maintained silence every week, one day, silence. And you, in your lives, you do one thing, all of you, whoever have got some time, or some people, all of you, this is my request to all of you. Every day, maybe if it is possible, you say that from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning, 1 hour, I don't speak. Put a time limit. 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Or in the evening, 7 to 8, no TV on, nothing is on. I don't talk to anybody. I maintain absolute silence. I am declaring it to all of you because I do it at home. Even when Rani auntie comes and my wife comes and puts questions, I don't answer. I maintain absolute silence. And she says, are you mad? Yeah, I think I'm mad. I'm slowly getting mad. You have to become mad because that is for your good. That is for your betterment. Maintain silence. Practice it. Practice it. You will accomplish it. I know all of you will accomplish it by the grace of Swami. Pray to Swami and tell him, Swami, I want to maintain. Sunday, you can maintain at least 3 hours, 4 hours silence. All of the whole family can maintain. You can teach your children also. Now silence. This is our silence time at home. In the entire house, nobody will speak. Imagine you feel you are at Prashanti Nilayam. Your house will be just a Prashanti Nilayam. You will really be happy after some time that you made your own house Prashanti Nilayam. Shanti, Shanti, it is all there. You will do it. Resolve, take a decision today. And all of you do that. In your families, there will be excellent peace, calmness, quietness, joy. You will be in bliss. Okay?
Thank you very much, sir. I think with such a beautiful explanation on silence, you already answered the next question. That is, how do we control our thinking? I think that already answers what you have just explained to us. With this, sir, I think we don't have any more questions, but there is so
Lakshminarayan,
much.
Lakshminarayan,
Yes,
I want to say a final thing. While maintaining silence and all that, I think we have to ask ourselves, all of us will have to ask ourselves one question. The question is, why I am talking so much? Why is it I am talking from morning till evening so much? Why I am talking so much on irrelevant things, useless things, waste of time things? We are talking about a cinema, you are talking about an actor, you are talking about a film, you are talking about a dish, you are talking about a dress, you are talking. Is it relevant? Is it necessary to talk on all trash? According to me, most of the things on which converse is nothing but simple trash it is. Don't you think it is better that we avoid all the trash? I ask myself a question. Before talking to Rani Aunty, I ask myself a question. Is it necessary to talk on this particular issue to her? No, it's a waste of time. Don't talk. I answer myself. Okay, keep quiet. Yeah. I tell myself, I tell you, there is a phone call from my brother, some conversation. I want to share it with my wife. I say, is it necessary to share it? It's not that important. It is not the future of a country is not involved in it. It's not. Most of the things, that's what, from morning till evening, before going to bed, if you sit on the bed in a folded legs, sit on the bed and talk to yourself for a minute. From morning, as I got up at 6 o'clock till now, to whomsoever, whatever I talked, how much time I talked, what was the relevant talk, what was the irrelevant talk, what was the mad talking I did, useless talk, avoidable talk. I think most of the people get heart attacks and die in their beds actually if they think like that. They must have entered into useless, irrelevant talk from morning till evening, which is absolutely avoidable. Let us avoid all that. It's not necessary. We are not the makers of the future of this universe. We are not going to decide the future of this universe. Decide your own future. That's good enough. So, silence is extraordinarily best thing. All gurus advised it. Meditation. All the sages and saints were in meditation for years and years and years. Their internal power became so strong, they were able to command gods. Brahma had to run from his loka direct to the fellow who maintained silence. Vishnu appeared before him, Shiva appeared before him because they maintained silence. They went inside, going inward through silence. You can go inward, journey. Take that journey. Practice this every day. Tell yourself, you write on a piece of paper and stick it on the wall. From 8 to 9, silence time. You did it in your hostels, you did it here. So many days, so many years you did it. So continue it again. And teach your families also.
sure. Thank you very much, sir. I think on this note, it'll only befit that we don't speak anything more, but start practicing silence right away. You've ended it on such a beautiful note and a very, very powerful message, which, of course, Swami has always been telling us. I'm sure there are a lot of takeaways. If I have to summarize, maybe I may just spoil everybody's silence right now. So, I would, leave it to everyone. There have been so many messages that Sir has shared today, what Swami expects from us and wants us to do. So, on this note, Sir, thank you once again from the Samarpan team, from all the devotees of particularly Mumbai and across the world who are watching this Samarpan session.
I need to thank you.
We look forward to having you again and again with us, sir, during these Samarpan sessions.
Remember that it's not I'm saying silence and all that. It is Prashanti Nilayam.
Yes, true.
Prashanti Nilayam. It is not ordinary Shanti. It is Prashanti. And you have a responsibility to convert your house into a Prashanti Nilayam and establish Swami in your house. And Swami is the lover of Shanti. He likes Shanti. He likes peace. Peace. You have experienced that peace in Prashantanam, is it not? When so many millions of devotees were there, it was such grand silence. Silence. Swami sitting in his interview room was enjoying that silence. In the depth of silence, you listen to the voice of God. If you want to hear the voice of God, you have to go to the depth of silence. Maintain silence. From inside, will speak to you. You will enjoy it. Really, you will enjoy. We enjoy it every minute in now. It is full right now in Prashantanam. Not even a bird. They finished their bhajan and went to sleep. So that's the idea.
True,
Thanks a lot to all
so
of you.
true, sir.
Yeah, it's in that Prashanti, you are always happy. You are in bliss when once you cultivate silence. Most important thing, be silent. Not necessary, because as you go on talking and talking, it disturbs your peace. It disturbs your calm. It disturbs your quietness. Everything is disturbed because of talking. Talking is nothing but thoughts. It's all thoughts. Millions, and you are generating millions of thoughts and causing unnecessary problem to yourself through your thoughts. The expression of thought in sound is word. They are not necessary. Calming down your thoughts. So you will enjoy. And Swami liked it. Swami liked the most silence. You get closer to him by maintaining silence. I need to thank you very, very much for giving this wonderful opportunity to me to share my thoughts and some of my experiences with Swami with all of you. I express my deep sense of gratitude to you all for helping me in reminiscing on my Esther years with Bhagavan in the veranda and with a lot of interactions. Thank you very, very much. I pray to Bhagavan to shower his immense grace on all of you and help you on the path of spirituality. Jai Sai Ram.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. On
Jai
this note, let us pray to Bhagwan and we end this session with Om Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti 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 Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। साई राम।